First of all, I think any thinking person knows that it's absolutely absurd for women to be in combat. I don't believe females should be in the military at all. But if they're in the armed services, I'll put them in desk jobs. If for some reason some twisted woman insists upon entering the armed forces, and God only knows why. But if somebody does, then I would put them in a desk job. But this idea of females in combat is truly absurd, and let me tell you why. You know, we talk about a subject like this, and then we move rapidly on to education. You know, we talk about policy things in the United States as though they're completely disjointed. So we'll have a little discussion about women in combat. Then tomorrow we talk about education policy, and we never link them. And we say, boy, what's wrong with our education? And what's wrong with the American family? And why aren't children learning the way we want them to learn? Why aren't children learning and growing and developing the way they used to, the way we want them to learn? What's the problem? And we scratch our heads, and maybe we have the usual debate about school vouchers and a few other things, and then we just kind of move on. Well, let me tell you why children are suffering and not doing well. Children are suffering and not doing well, and education is substandard, not because of the schools or even really because of the teachers' unions, bad as they are, but because they have no mothers. They have no mothers. We put women into the workforce just like men. Now we want to take this to such extreme. I mean, we go to extremes in this country. We say women are going to be lawyers and doctors, which I think is very extreme. And then we take it even more extreme. Now we say women are going to be in combat. The next thing, they'll want to put them in special forces, for God's sakes. We go to these extremes, and then we say there are no mothers with the children, and we scratch our heads, and we just can't figure out what the problem is. The problem in this country is more women need to be home with their children. For anybody who really believes in family values, that's the debate. That's the discussion. But even people like Rick Santorum are afraid to say that. You don't hear people saying that in the presidential debate last year. You don't even hear Santorum. You didn't. Even the far right social conservatives would be terrified of saying that. They believe it. Sure, they believe it, but they're afraid. They're afraid to tell the country the truth. Well, it's time to tell the country the truth. Well, we are joined now by Hope Hodge of Human Events. She's covers defense and national security. You've read her stuff. You've seen her on cable news. You've seen her all over the place. Hope, thank you so much for being with us.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Well, what do you think of my polemic here? What do you think of my tirade?
Well, I'm a little scared, to be honest with you. I have a feeling that you don't think of much of women as reporters either, but...
Well, you got a point, but I just, it's not that I oppose women in the workforce. I just think we need more women. What about focusing on children? I mean, what do you think of my basic premise that when we go to extremes with putting women into the workplace, like they rise all the way up to be lawyers and doctors, and then we go beyond that, we want to put them in the military... Isn't that just so extreme? What about motherhood? Why don't I hear politicians talk about motherhood? Why don't I hear anyone in Congress in either party say, boy, I'm concerned there aren't enough mothers with their children. I'm concerned that the nation's children are in daycare. How come I never hear politicians talk about that?
Well, it's a choice that they can't really make for mothers themselves. I mean, that's kind of where I fall on that. But to talk about women in the military for a second, the way I look at this is there are good and bad reasons for and against women being in combat.
What are the good?
All right. Good reasons, military readiness. Now, this is established, and it's hard to hear sometimes, but the military is very specific about who they will and won't accept for certain positions. In fact, I've got a fiance who tried to join the Marine Corps years ago and had kind of a mild skin condition that he actually doesn't have anymore, but that was enough to keep him out. Allergies is another thing. So there are very specific requirements for these positions. And, for the infantry, for example, women might not be able to carry a 65-pound pack or, do the basic pull-up requirements. That's a big issue.
So are there women, educate me, are there women who are physically capable of meeting the standards to be in combat?
It depends how you define those standards. And yes, I think there are absolutely women who can. And no, I don't think every woman can. So it's a big question about just what's going to be required of these women.
Can you take me inside the psychology? I mean, I know, okay, there are things we say on radio and television, and then there's the real world. What type of crazy woman wants to be in combat? I'm trying to envision what kind of nutty woman says, boy, I'm a female, and I just lust after combat. Forgive me, but why am I having trouble envisioning this madness?
First of all, it's important for me to point out that there have been roughly 147 women who have been killed in the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan.
How is that relevant? How's that relevant?
That's relevant because women are already serving in many ways on the front lines. They're airplane pilots. They fill positions that go far beyond desk jobs, as you mentioned. And there's something in the Marine Corps called female engagement teams, which filled a very unique position in Afghanistan, particularly because these women who were essentially infantry.
I know that. I know you're a good reporter. You're giving me the facts. I know that. But what I'm saying is, take me inside. What kind of a woman? Obviously, a girl like you don't want to be in the Army. What kind of a woman? Take me inside the psyche to the extent you can. What kind of female says, what kind of a little girl growing up says, boy, I really want to be in Afghanistan. I want to carry that M16 and shoot it out. Why can't I envision that? Take me inside the psychology of a woman that wants that. I mean, it just seems to me nuts. It's nuts. I don't understand. Have we gone mad in this country? Tell me, take me inside the brain of the female that wants that.
I sort of find your assumption objectionable that I wouldn't want to be in the military.
You'd want to be in the military?
I've considered it from time to time.
You've considered the military?
And I have, and I have female friends that I respect who've made that choice. But the thing here is that how is a woman's psyche so different from a man's? How is her decision-making
Because she's a woman.
So very different.
Because she's a female. She's a woman. She's different. I mean, men and women are different, for God's sakes. I mean, don't we know that?
Yes, biologically different, even psychologically to a certain degree, but not so that it affects our every choice, and not so that every position in the workforce is
so you considered
specific.
All right, okay, I'll take you at your word. So you considered chopping off your hair, putting on a uniform, crawling through the mud, and shooting it out with Al Qaeda, and that's something.
It sounds like
and that's
you've been
something
watching that Katy Perry video. And that actually make you chop off your hair.
And that's something that turns you on. You said, "God darn it, I want to get out of Washington D.C. and I'm going to go there and, as a woman, crawl on the dirt and shoot at Al Qaeda."
Not every woman wants to do that, but some surely do. I mean, it's honorable. It's a way to defend your country.
It's
and
honorable.
It's
all of those things. It's
hugely
honorable. It's hugely honorable. I just think it's nuts. It's nuts.
And you're entitled to think that, but you're also not entitled to make this decision for the women who are now allowed.
Don't you think, though, that don't you think the country's gone too far? I mean, you see my basic point. Okay, you go back to the 60s, okay? You look at women were secretaries, everybody chased them around the desk, they treated them like meat. All right, we've gone, obviously you had to change that circumstance. You had to bring women into the workplace in a legitimate way. Women had to advance. But don't you think we've gone way too far in terms of taking women out of the workplace, taking them into the workplace, taking them away from children? Haven't we as a society gone too far in taking females away from their most important duty, which is mothering?
The one concern I might have, the one area where this it might have gone too far is simply removing this restriction on women in combat before studying it thoroughly. Before Don't Ask, Don't Tell was repealed, there was a thorough study. There were surveys. This seems to be a lot more arbitrary. So that's my one concern because women and men fighting side by side, there are some legitimate concerns there. But as far as arbitrarily banning women from different roles in the workforce, I can't see a way to agreeing with you at all there. Okay,
but I say, but why is it that? Let me put this. Let me try to phrase this in a different way. One thing I haven't heard you talk about. I hear your arguments. You make the points well. What about the business of mothering? Do you not agree that that's the most important responsibility of the nation's women? If we're not raising good children, and obviously mothers are the most essential part of raising a good child, isn't it the case that we as a nation have no future, however potent our armies might be?
I think motherhood is extremely important, and I think that role should be revered and respected, and in fact it's a choice that I plan to make to stay home with my kids eventually. But it's not the place for politicians and for pundits to force women to make that choice.
But isn't it the case that we take some risk? Okay, you say, like you admitted, I don't know what those physical standards are. Aren't we really just tweaking those standards and lessening those standards? Isn't that a lot of this is like affirmative action? It's what you do in law school. You lower the standards so you can have minorities in the classroom. Isn't that what we're doing in the military now? We're lowering the physical standards so we can put women in the Marines. Isn't that what's happening?
That's a concern that a lot of people have, and in some ways it's legitimate. For example, the number of pull-ups that women have to do as opposed to men to qualify for various Marine Corps positions is different. And, that's just because of physical structure and women don't have as strong arms as men do. So there are plenty of people who make that case that it's difficult to have an equal standard, and but at the same time that's sort of a lesser consideration.
Hope Hodge, I love that name. It's like a stage name. You could be an actress. Hope, I thank you so much. You've held up well under this withering and perhaps unfair fire. No pun intended. Thank you, Hope.
Thanks for having me.
All right, thank you.